Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest Metropolitan post-game segment as the Metsies go down here in Game 4 of a 4-game set against the Atlanta Braves by a whopping score of a 9-2. In today's show, we're going to break down everything that transpired inning by inning, but really more so of a summary, I should say, because the Mets simply had nothing to show for it on the offensive end for a second consecutive day. This was yet the latest example of the Mets not performing during day games on the weekend. Color me surprised. This comes again after taking the first 2 games against the Atlanta Braves, looking like you're going to secure a series victory with ease. Surely just going to win one of the 2 games, but no, of course that doesn't happen. In the most Metsian fashion possible, as we always go through our ebbs and flows, our highs, our lows throughout the course of the season. Now we have the Mets here with nothing to show over the past 24 hours, and this comes right after the unfortunate news Dakota Senga out for the season with this calf strain that we know. And now, while the Mets have made some big splashes as of late, with Jesse Winker being their latest acquisition that we broke down in last night's late night live show that's at roughly 20,000 views. Thank you all so much for that. Make sure to check out our more in-depth breakdown on Jesse Winker and why he's a perfect fit for the Mets and David Stearns, especially in our video that came out earlier today as well. A thorough breakdown, more so not only on the numbers, but his clutch numbers as well, along with ultimately how does Jesse Winker fit with David Stearns? Why does it make the sense that it does? But even with that positive happening, it is still very much a cloudy day in Mets land as they drop this one again by a final score of 9-2. We have some very important updates to get into on the Mets bullpen front. We have some key updates on the trade news and rumor front, as I have some information to relay your way, everybody. We will likely have another video or stream out later today, of course, with all the news going on and rumors leading up to the MLB trade deadline. And rest assured, once we actually find out more substantial reporting, once we find out more breaking news, all those kind of things, we will break it down together here in Metsland as we typically do. But everybody first chiming in live on a replay, happy to have you all in here as always. Yes, I know the common consensus with everybody is that they firmly believe Sal Licata has once again cursed the Mets, right? If you guys don't know, Sal 2 years ago, back when the Mets overtook the Atlanta Braves, you know, they won 3 out of 4 there in that series in that summer with DeGrom on the bump. Right around that time is when Sal said that the NL East is over. Famously, the Braves took that as a rally to really work around, and they had themselves a run like never before for the remainder of that season, toppling the Mets there first in the division. We fast forward 2 years later. Sal famously finds out that the Mets are 2 games up in a 4-game set against the Braves, and for just one night, are first in the NL wild card over the Braves, which is what warranted Sal to say the wild card race is over. Trust me, everybody, Sal knew exactly what he was doing when he tweeted that. He was purposely doing it to get you guys to bite to it the way that you did, which is why everybody that has entertained it has made the great mistake of doing exactly that. So that is what I'll leave you with on the Sal front. I have no personal ill will with Sal. You know, I've talked with him off air. I was even on WFAN in the past, and I appreciate that. Appreciate Sal for sure. However, and I made it abundantly clear, I'm all but in favor of when Sal tweets that kind of nonsense. And I've even talked to him off air how, you know, if you want to build a larger following on socials, if you want to make sure people don't hate you as much as they do, then you need to make sure that you cut the BS when you do this stuff. But Sal's going to do his thing. He's always going to do his thing. So again, no one should be shocked by that. And if anyone actually believes that that goes in hand with the Mets' lack of success this season, or the past 24 hours, I should say, I can't even fault you all that much, only because we're the same Mets fans that rallied around Grimace, that rallied around Max earlier in the year with the curly hair, the rally pimp, that rallied around that little dog. I mean, we're always finding things to rally ourselves around. So we're going to be superstitious that way. We can't be hypocrites and not be superstitious the other way. So again, I understand where fan viewpoint comes from on that front for sure. But all right, unmotivated baseball, absolutely. And it definitely sucks for sure. We're not happy to see the Mets drop this series the way that they did. And while they didn't technically lose the series, it definitely feels like a series loss. And this is a gut punch right to the gut, not only for the Mets, but also to us right now, after again riding high the way that they were. If you guys and gals are first chiming in live in a replay, thank you all so much. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way in. If you're watching us live on Twitter, hit those buttons as well. Greatly appreciated. But no, as always, we're only going to be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube per usual. But let me make sure we are all set up here to my over 200 viewers on Twitter as well. Thank you guys all so much for that. Going to make sure that everything is set up here for 1 second. That we're going to continue to break down as there is a lot to get into on the update front from the last time I spoke to you guys live, at least, along with all the latest updates with the Metsies and their 9-2 loss today, where David Peterson was brilliant throughout the first 3 innings, and then in his best Tyler McGill impression, unfortunately had himself one bad inning not long after. It looked clearly shaken up. It looked like David Peterson may have an issue with his arm. Not that I wish it. We'll find out further information about that sooner than later if we haven't already. But no less, the Metsies again lose this one after riding high. The vibes were immaculate at Citi Field, guys. I was there Thursday. It was a packed crowd. Walk-off victory with Jeff was amazing. Then we saw what transpired there the very next day with the 8-4 victory, thanks to the JD Martinez grand slam. Thanks to the Mets, I believe, 7-run third inning. Since then, though, we haven't seen the Metsies offense that we've been hoping for, and truthfully, outside of a couple big hits, the offense has definitely been sporadic, especially even on a day like today where you had a boatload of extra base hits, but it took the Mets being down 9-0 for Pete Alonso to clutch up and to drive in a run. Not going to fault Pete too much today. He had a double earlier in the game. It's not his fault no one drove him in, but for the people that like the narrative that Pete Alonso only steps up in non-high leverage situations and low leverage down behind the count, which is 100% true based on his splits this year per Baseball Reference, that sadly, once again, held true. Let's see. Ricky, how are you? I will get to your comments here in a second, my man. Just give me 1 second, and then we will continue to roll on here with the show, folks. Let's see here. AZ, thank you so much for the $5 holla. AZ says, Senga's injury killed the Mets' momentum. It really stinks. Unlike almost all Mets fans, we got to keep the faith no matter what. Let's go Mets. Yep, let's go Mets, baby. You said it best, my man. And again, just because the Mets dropped their last 2 does not mean that we're not going to keep the faith now. The sky isn't falling. The Mets are still in the wild card spot as things currently stand. They are tied for the 3rd wild card spot. If the Padres lose today, then they will just be a half game behind them. And for the Braves, they will still be at least a full game or a game and a half behind right now after dropping the last 2 games. Cherno, great member, my man, says, not going to happen yet, but I want to see Sproat so bad, as do I. But yes, Brandon Sproat is not going to get the call as things currently stand. Henry, how are you? Happy to have you in here. Says, bro, it's all good. We will get back on track. New players change chemistry, and they just need to gel together. Lineup shuffle because chaos sometimes. Absolutely. And again, there's a lot to get into this on this one. Not only with the new guys coming on the block, but also the new guys that just got here, including Ryan Stanek, who had a less than ideal first Metropolitan outing today. Absolutely. For anyone that thinks that Stanek is going to be horrendous during his time with the Mets, his first outing would make you think exactly that. And I can't sit here and tell you guys, oh no, trust me, Ryan Stanek is going to be nails every time out there. I can't say that to you guys, obviously, after what we saw, what transpired today. We just have to hope that that was the jitters with Stanek, who obviously was slumping leading up to his trade from the Mariners. The past month, Stanek has not pitched good baseball, to be quite frank. He has really struggled to locate with that sinker especially. It just is not working the way that it should be for him. So, in the case here of Ryan Stanek, it's about utilizing that fastball big time, getting nice bite on your off-speed pitches. And today, you know, the Braves just ate him up for breakfast, and the reason why I'm not overly concerned is, one, it's his first outing. If we're basing everything on a first outing, we're being the schmuck fans that we typically are at times. And 2, this is a Mets team that was currently losing by, what was it, 7-0 by the time that happened? It was, again, things were continuing to free fall downward. There was really nothing trending in the right direction for the Mets today. They had a boatload of extra base hits as well and had no one to be able to drive them in until, again, we found ourselves down 9 runs in this ball game. And before we go on further, because I got some updates, I want to break down the game for each and every one of you, and I want to see what questions you guys and gals got for me. I really want to get into it, everybody, so give me 1 second. Let's see. Ryan Stank starts as Ryan Stank. Oh, there you go, Marcus. He did stink today. There's no denying that. I'm not going to sit here and say that Ryan Stank was amazing, because he was far from it. He was Swiss cheese. He just was not good. But that, you know, it's going to happen. You're going to have outings like that. But for the case of Stanek, just can't be consistent, because if it is, then the same way he just got here, as much as I love his stuff, having stuff and having quality outings are 2 different things. Stanek has to prove that. I'm confident that he will do that, but until he does that, naturally there's going to be the question marks, which, again, I understand. I do not see anything regarding David Pearson on his health, so that's at least a good thing. Pearson did say he's actually feeling good after he was seen shaking his arm out. After the 4th inning, in which Pearson gave up at least 3 or 4 runs, Pearson was famously shaking his left hand, which led some, including myself, to believe, okay, you know, he's really anxious right now. There could be something going on. on. Then in the 5th inning, he was shaking his arm a little bit. So again, normally when pitchers do that, there's a reason. It's because there's a lack of comfortability there, and you have to wonder what is going on. But for Pearson, it appears as of now that at least he is healthy. There's nothing to it, says him, so that's a positive at least. But what certainly wasn't a positive for David Pearson, sadly, was his outing today, and that is what we're going to break down all right about now, folks. So everybody, continue to let me know your initial reactions to the 9-2 loss, the series split, but ultimately all the latest news and rumors of Mets land, because again, guys, I got a video that I plan to come out later today for you, so be on the lookout for it. Barring any changes, we'll see what happens there. Also, again, if breaking news happens from now up until then, we'll talk about it, and stay tuned as I will be live in the Bleacher Report app tomorrow around 11 and then 12 p.m. Eastern for two different trade deadline related segments, and then we will have more content tomorrow as we always do, and then big live stream Tuesday for the actual trade deadline, assuming that the Mets didn't make all their biggest splashes by then. If they do it, then it will be a more of a lesser trade deadline, not as dramatic, if you will, because we already know what the Mets are getting, right? But all right, Scott, thank you for the $5 haul. I appreciate that. Scott in the chat says our starting rotation is 7 and 4 of the exact same 5 and die pitchers. When our offense isn't carrying us, our staff is exposed. Fine starter. Scott, you're preaching the choir, my man. We all know this. I promise you, I can look at each and every one of you dead in the eye and tell you and guarantee you, Mets fans, I'm going to pull the Mark Messier guarantee. If you know, for my Ranger fans, if you're a Devil fan, simply don't listen, all right? If you know, you know. But I can guarantee you, not that we're going to win tonight, but I can guarantee you that, yes, the Mets will trade for a starting pitcher. I've already heard rumblings that, yes, the Mets have been very active on that front. We've talked about a guy like Eric Fedde, who's on the thumbnail currently of the show, unless I changed it. Since then, we're going to talk a bit more about him, other starting options as well, as the Mets are destined to acquire at minimum one starting pitcher with potential of 2. However, 1 is more of the guarantee between the 2, obviously. And on the reliever front, the Mets are guaranteed to acquire at least 1 more, if not 2 relievers. On the offensive end, I think it's safe to say the Mets are done. The only exception is if they somehow, someway pull off a crazy trade for like a Luis Robert. That would really shock us, right? But again, I don't foresee that happening. It appears that Jesse Winker is likely their lone offensive acquisition, which I'm not really complaining about all that much. I just want this Mets team to get their pitching rectified. We know how good and electric this offense can be when they're clicking and when they're rolling, so that's far from my concerns. My concern level stems with the same concern level that most Mets fans have, and that is on the consistency or lack thereof on the pitching front. TJ with the $10 donation, and then we will break everything down now, folks. My apologies for the delay. Per usual, I got to answer your questions. That's why you guys are watching. I want to hear it, and I want to break them down for you all. And he says the following, TJ, with the $10 holla, what if we get a legit starter like Jack Flaherty, for example, and a back-end starter, and then move Peterson and McGill to the bullpen? Well, you're not going to move both of the bullpen, and I'd argue that you might not even move either to the bullpen, because when you look at the bullpen configuration right now, you really don't need to do that. The Mets have already moved a starter turn reliever there, that being in Jose Butto. I don't think that they need to go the lengths to do much more than that. With McGill and Peterson, they're probably best in AAA should the Mets acquire another starter. In the case of Peterson, he has electric stuff at times for sure, but similar to Tyler, can just not find that consistency for more than a couple starts that you want to find if you're a Mets fan, right? But I appreciate the donation as always, TJ. Greatly appreciate that. Yeah, again, the Mets add at least 1 starter. Jack Flaherty would be amazing. He's having an electric year. However, he's going to cost you quite a bit more than maybe even an Eric Fedde to a degree. Because even with Fedde on team control, he's not as costly and as high demand of a pitcher right now as Jack Flaherty is, because Flaherty's having quite literally a dominant season for the Tigers, whereas Fedde is having a very nice, comfortable season, but a guy that more profiles best as a number 3 versus Jack, who you could really pair to frontline this rotation with a Luis Severino and then kind of go from there. And it sucks that I can't say Kodai Senga yet, because Kodai Senga was officially placed on the 16-day injury list today, which means the season has come to an end. And there is one silver lining. If you want to view this at all as glass half full regarding Kodai Senga, it is the following. Because Kodai is going to miss the remainder of the regular season at minimum with injury, fingers crossed he returns when the Mets could say utilize him in postseason play, but oh my God, the fact that we lost our ace after everything that transpired there, knowing that maybe he didn't even need to pitch that 5th inning, but we did because he was cruising. It's beyond words at this point. I don't even want to scream my head off about it. It just really makes me upset, if I'm being quite frank, when I think about it. But regardless, if the Mets are going to be looking to add to this rotation, there are multiple guys out there that make sense right now, but the returns certainly vary. And for Kodai Senga now, him on the shelf, there is one plus, should he continue to be a great pitcher once he's healthy, and that's that Senga now will be under team control of the Mets until the 2027 offseason. He initially did have a player option, which could have had him opt out after the 2025 season if he pitched a certain amount of innings by that season's end. However, he will not be able to, based on how much he is missing this year alone, pretty much the entire year, right? So for Kodai Senga, it sucks to see him on the shelf, but should he continue to be the dominant ace that we know and expect him to be, the Mets are now going to have him under team comfortable control at a great AAV for multiple years still, something that they otherwise probably wouldn't have had should Kodai have a great season and then likely hit the market again a year plus from now. So again, I see both sides of the coin. It sucks for sure, but there's one positive. There's any good thing to take out of it, I would say it is exactly that. And on the good topics, everybody, Jesse Winker's a Met. That's electric. Again, the former Met villain killer turned friend now, longtime teammate with Pete Alonso going back to their travel ball days at the age of 12, has connections with JD Martinez, and even had a pinch hit at bat later in this ball game. He struck out, but that's okay. We're just so excited to see Jesse Winker in Queens, a clear upgrade over DJ Stewart, who was sent down as a corresponding move. Wishing you the best in Syracuse, TJ. I mean, not TJ, DJ. We certainly have enjoyed you at times this year, but we've also been frustrated by you. And we all wanted upgrade of a lefty bat option, corner outfield / DH to platoon some playing time with JD Martinez when JD isn't doing well against specific matchups, or when JD's typically slumping as the slugger that he is at the point in his career. That is why Jesse Winker is just such a nice fit. And to get, again, further detail, further information, have you guys all covered with that here on the channel with the video that we dropped earlier today, along with our initial reactions that many of you guys saw already. If not, it feels like everyone in Mets land last night, because that thing absolutely popped off. I'm pretty sure I was the first person at least live stream it. I know I wasn't the first to come out with a form of content, but it was pretty cool for us to do such a late night live stream like that and have the reactions that we did. Very, very cool stuff, to say the least. Mets need an impact bat. I would completely argue that they don't. Yeah, that's the thing. If you look at the numbers, there's nothing to suggest the Mets need a impact bat. They just landed one in Jesse Winker to help them big time to round out the offense. And two, Mets offensively have been top 3 in baseball for over the past 2+ months. So why are we going to sit here and just act like those things don't exist now because, oh, the Mets slumped the past 24 hours? Like, we have to push those things aside and separate them when we're having a full evaluation on the season and not just short-term success or lack thereof. And that's all the latest updates, folks. Final is Sean Reed-Foley, Reed Garrett. They're ramping up back. They're both starting rehab. SRF began his tonight. Reed Garrett will be starting soon. He's still thrown off the mound, I believe. SRF did not have a great outing there in Port St. Lucie in his first rehab outing. Gave up a couple runs over just 0.2 innings pitched, but again, it's his first rehab outing back. I could quite literally care less what SRF does and what Reed Garrett does there and the rehab, as they're just working back to be with the Mets bullpen. And speaking of Reed Garrett, final thing, everybody, the final thing. I'm sorry, I know we're roughly 20 minutes in this one, but we got a lot of updates to break down. Far more important than this godforsaken 9-2 loss, if we're being quite frank, right? And a lot of trade rumors that we're going to get into after breaking down the ball game too, all the news there. But the very important thing here to evaluate with the Mets right now, what is going on with them and their bullpen, is that should they add another reliever, which they will, at least one more, Reed Garrett, even though he's had success this season, I would not be shocked if Reed Garrett isn't in this Mets bullpen by the end of the season. Like, there's a world where at least one of Reed Garrett, Sean Reed-Foley are absolutely not in this Mets bullpen, if not both of them, not because they haven't been productive for the Mets this year, but because the Mets simply upgrade those current options from what they have. So just some food for thought for you all, everybody. Buckle up. The Mets guaranteed 100%. Again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put 2 and 2 together. Trades are coming. The exact same way I told you all early yesterday. Trades were coming after Senga being down with injury, and all it took was mere hours, and then we saw trades start to ensue from there, rumors at least, and again, expect more to happen. And actually, I meant to say from 2 days ago when I did a video after the initial injury news and just more on the bullpen front, the Mets were inevitably going to be making moves. They have happened. They got Stanek, now they have gone Winker, and they will be adding multiple players still from now up until the evening this Tuesday. But guys, let's get into it now. Let's break down everything that transpired in this one. The key takeaways, at least. You choke. Oh, you hate to see it, Hog. You hate to see it. Shout out Borna, best Padres YouTuber you'll ever find out here. Mets and Padres are neck and neck right now in the wild card race. And the Padres, who were just rolling in their series against the Orioles, not rolling today against Baltimore there in Camden Yards in that series finale, I believe. Sorry to hear that, Born. I love it for my O's, but I hate it for you, and I love it for my Mets because it helps in the wild card. No less. Love you, Borna. But let's get into this one, everybody, because a couple things stood out to me right off the riff. This was a tale of what we've seen a lot with the Mets, and this includes even the Mets when we look at this series as a whole, because outside of Francisco Lindor's home run in Game 1, and outside of JD Martinez's grand slam in Game 2, I know those things are important, so I'm not trying to undermine them or push them aside. But when we look collectively at the Mets' offensive woes as of late, they have been notable, and they definitely go in hand to a degree with them playing day games. This Mets team just simply is not good playing day games. They have not been consistently whatsoever this season. And yes, Alvarez is completely lost at the plate right now. Unfortunate news for him. A post-All-Star break, just not in a rhythm whatsoever. The way that he was rolling heading into said All-Star break. He'll get back in the groove of things, but he's slumping hard right now. We know that. No less. And this is, mind you, after he hit a home run this series too. He still has only, I think, 2 for his last 27 or so. But the Mets, over this Braves-Mets series, had a 1-2-3 inning with their offense 16 times. The Mets did not score one measly run in this series for 20 consecutive innings. So again, where do the problems lie in this split series? More often than not, it's going to be here, unfortunately, now with the offense. An offense that hasn't been the problem a good stretch the past couple months was the problem, was the focal point the past 24 hours. The pitching didn't necessarily help all that much in Peterson, and the bullpen today for sure didn't help outside of Alex Young, who was my southpaw option in this bullpen. That's why that video blew up. He has now pitched 4 scoreless innings for the Mets. Love me some Alex Young, baby. We take that every day of the week. But seriously, all jokes aside, this Mets team definitely needs to get their head out of their butt and fast, because they're playing a very good, a beaten up, but still a very talented Minnesota Twins team starting tomorrow with former Mets draft pick, part of the Marcus Stroman trade, if you know, you know. No, not New Yorker himself and Anthony K. Southpaw, who isn't even in the MLB. He's pitching overseas right now. But no, we're going to talk about, yes, Simone Woods Richardson. He matches up against the Mets. That'll be an exciting matchup. But in this matchup between the Mets, between the Braves, everything kept falling flat on its face that we saw there in the 4th inning. Because leading up to the 4th inning, for both teams, again, the Mets had themselves, you know, not a whole lot on the offensive end early. They were hitting some doubles for sure, but they were not able to drive anyone in, and that was frustrating. And for David Pearson, who retired the first 8 to 10 batters that he faced, we then get to the 4th inning, and this is where, unfortunately, David Pearson's strong start goes to die. And literally, it is exactly that. Austin Riley gets on with a walk. Ozuna gets on with a single. Olsen rips his 15th home run of the year, 2nd home run of the series against the Mets, gives him a 3-0 lead. Travis d'Arnaud gets on with a walk. A wild pitch advances him to second base. Nacho Alvarez Jr. rips a single. You know it's a bad thing if you're giving up a single to a guy named Nacho. And then Orlando Arcia walks to drive in another run. It's 4-0 Atlanta here. Again, complete lack of the strike zone command that we saw by David Pearson there. Again, he was a little shaky, anxious, exiting out of that 4th inning after he was cruising the first 3 innings, just had nothing to show there in the 4th. He was batting practice. It looked like a beach ball of a ball to those Braves batters, and they made Peterson pay, and they unfortunately would never look back. And for the Mets here, again, they would have some opportunities. You would get doubles from guys like Vientos. You would get doubles from guys like Alonso. You got not 1 but 2 doubles by Tyrone Taylor today, and you didn't drive him in either situation. Like, are you serious right now? Yes, that did in fact happen. We did see some electric defensive plays by Francisco Lindor today. We saw some great acrobatic plays in the outfield as well, but on the offensive end, there was quite literally nothing to show until it was well too little too late. And Ryan Stanek, again, who came in relief today that we saw later on in this ball game. Let's double check what inning Stanek came in. He came in the 7th inning after a clean 1-2-3 inning of work by Alex Young, including a strikeout for the Mets southpaw option in this bullpen. Stanek comes in, and Ryan Stanek is just unfortunately batting practice. He gives up a home run to Orlando Arcia right away, makes it 5-0. Then we see Adam Duvall gets hit by a pitch after 1 out. Riley then hits his 14th home run of the year to make it 7-0 Braves. A Marcell Ozuna ground out and a Matt Olson strikeout later, and that is Ryan Stanek's final line in his first inning of work as a New York Metropolitan reliever. And I know everyone thinks this guy's a bum, and until he proves you wrong, that's just how it's going to be. I know how Mets fans are wired. I'm not even going to try to sell you, even though the numbers, and I really like Stanek's arsenal, I want him to perform, right? So until he performs, I'm going to sit here and shut up because I know how this works. But on the offensive end, again, Stanek, as you guys can see there, 1 inning, 3 earned run ball. And let's just take a quick look at Stanek and what stuck out about his arsenal today. I'm going to highlight it a little bit more than David Peterson because Stanek is a guy that is expected to have potentially a greater impact than even Peterson down the stretch here, should he stay in this pen and be a considered setup option for them when he is right in flame throwing as best. David Peterson may very well be on the outside looking in with this rotation should the Mets add one, if not multiple arms from now up until the July 30th, Tuesday, MLB trade deadline. And as we take a look here briefly at Stanek, mind you, the Mets did not have offense early against a phenomenal pitcher who is a reliever turned starter from the Angels this past season, Ronaldo Lopez with the Braves. However, Lopez did exit today's game early, sadly, because of forearm tightness, so I do not wish injury on anyone, even my arch rivals. I hope Lopez is okay and has a speedy recovery and doesn't miss any time because that absolutely sucks. And the Braves have had a plethora of injuries this year, so again, I might hate Hotlanta. Trust me, I do, but I never wish injuries on anyone. That sucks to see, especially for a guy like Lopez who has been nails as quite literally the Braves' ace option paired along with Chris Sale and Max Fried this season. It's been crazy how good he's been this year. But a guy that was not good today was Ryan Stanek. Again, fastball topped out 98.5, sat around 97, so a little down from the year average at 98, 97.4 to be exact. Splitty topped out 90.4, sat 89. That was up, actually. Down slightly was a slider that was topping out right around 80, 88, 87. Sits right around there. And the sinker that he threw just once, 95 miles per hour is where he's throwing that thing. And again, when we see what we have here in Ryan Stanek, you just get a guy that has a very nice arsenal, but cannot be throwing meatballs. Because even if you're flame throwing, it means absolutely nothing. And speaking of meaning absolutely nothing, let's talk about a guy who has had a very unfortunate season, who was just actually cut by, yes, that being the New York Yankees. JD Davis was just cut by the Yankees. So shout out to JD. Thank you so much for helping the Mets in both Subway Series this year. We really appreciate that. Help the Mets secure those victories thanks to your inning-ending double plays and strikeouts. I mean, does it feel nice for it to not be on the receiving end, and this time the Mets being the ones to dish it there to JD. Just want to throw that out there because I just saw the notification pop up on my phone. But that's there what you need to know about Ryan Stanek. Of course, Jake Diekman comes in and Diekman gives up batting practice, because why wouldn't Jake Diekman do that? Jake Diekman is a guy that I still do not want in this bullpen. I don't care that he had that huge out against Aaron Judge. We appreciate that, but that is an anomaly from the reality that is Jake Diekman just simply has not gotten the job done 9 out of 10 times this season, yet he continues to be thrown out there. And even when the Mets are down the way that they were, you have no faith because Jake Diekman is going to make the game worse than what it already was. 7-0, no, let's make it 9-0 there with Diekman. Pete Alonso comes in and he rips a 2-run home run in garbage time, which again, as someone like myself has refuted in the past, because previous year's numbers, if you guys think I'm wrong, look up the numbers yourself. Pete Alonso's clutch numbers, runs and scoring position, ahead versus behind in games, are all drastically different this year, worse than any other season before. And Pete Alonso, when losing in ball games, when losing by multiple runs, is where he's had his most success. I'm not joking when I tell you this. Go all look up the splits. If you guys didn't watch our video from the past 2 weeks on why there is a Pete Alonso problem this year, it directly goes in hand with Pete's inability to properly hit pitching early and often in ball games. But again, I'm not going to say that Pete had a bad game because he was the only offensive contribution today, but just some food for thought there for the people that feel that narrative holds true. This was the latest example of exactly that. However, Pete is not at fault whatsoever by getting a double earlier and no one driving him in. So for that reason, I can't fault him there for sure. But what I can fault him for is the previous lack of success that we have broken down at great length this season and previously on the channel. And shout out to my over 800 live viewers here on Twitter, to my 200 plus here on YouTube. Thank you all so much for that. Continue to smash that like, that subscribe button, that retweet button. But please know, as always, everybody, I'm only going to be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube. And we have a lot more to get into here on the key updates, not just with the Mets faltering and having a series split against the Atlanta Braves, but more on the latest news and rumors for this club as well that we're going to be highlighting here in just the next couple minutes. Let's see here. I love how teams who are run correctly don't keep really bad players. How is this team trying to go for it, yet they trot Ottavino and Diekman out there? It's because they're trying to find the replacements, Alex. We're being quite frank. That's the reason why. The Mets add 1 or 2 relievers, or both. One of them is going to be a high leverage reliever for them, which is, again, going to help box out bad options. So, again, By adding, it gives the Mets the ability to make sure that they can cut dead weight versus maybe, say, having to try to consider an internal option that they don't love and much rather just throw a guy out there for the time being because he at least has a better track record. That's really the only way to justify it, especially in the case of Jake Diekman. But rest assured, I am not opposed to seeing one, if not both, of Ottavino and Diekman out of this Mets bullpen by the time Tuesday has concluded. But I expect one of them to probably stay in there, barring any changes right now. We'll see. What we will also see is the Mets getting back to their winning ways, because while it didn't happen today, it will certainly happen, and fingers crossed it begins as soon as tomorrow. And we're right around the halfway mark of the show. We're at halfway to 100 likes here live on YouTube. So thank you so much for each and every one of you amazing Mets fans chiming in. Greatly appreciate that. Help us get there, as always, everybody. Let's see there. Problem with Alonso is his eating habits. That take is as old as your comments. Get a little original. My goodness gracious, what are you, stuck in 2020? Let's see. Enzo says, sad to say this, but yeah, Pete comes up in big spots when we're trailing a game. Yep, that's exactly what we were relaying there. Let me go up in the chat as well. Let's see what you guys got for me. Billy, thank you so much for the $2 holla. Billy says, worried about Alvarez's bat and need another solid arm. I'm not worried at all about Alvarez's bat. He's just slumping right now. Well, slumps are going to happen. Alvarez is a big swing and miss guy. When he's locked in, he's locked the F in as one of the best batters and overall players in baseball. But when he's not locked in, he's free swinging big time. And we have seen Alvarez free swing quite a bit lately. So for Alvarez, he's been framing great. We know that, but we just need to make sure that he can get back to that offensive juggernaut we know he can be, and we expect him to continue to blossom and become. So for Alvarez, I'm not overly concerned there. I fully expect him to snap out of the rut he currently finds himself in, especially with how deep this Mets lineup is. Should he continue to struggle, he's going to get more pitches to hit. Should guys around him be thriving, like a Vientos or like, say, someone behind him, whether it's going to be below him, whether it's going to be maybe a Jesse Winker, or maybe it's going to be a red-hot Tyrone Taylor, maybe it's going to be a Jeff McNeil. Like, the point is that this Mets lineup, when these guys are rolling, is truly one of the best in Major League Baseball. We have seen that already this year. And now you enter Jesse Winker in the fold. Yeah, good things are going to happen for this Mets team. That's why we're not sitting here, freaking out overly. If you are, then, it's unfortunate for you. I'll say that, because I've had my fair share of freakouts as a Mets fan covering this team live, and I can tell you that if I'm not overly freaking out about them right now, then there's a good reason for it, right? And the obvious reason is everything that I relayed to you the past half hour, unless you guys just started to listen. Let's see. I blame Mendoza's micromanaging for these last two games. I couldn't disagree more. Mets 21-28, and the reason for that is Carlos Mendoza's micromanaging does not account for the Mets' complete lack of ability to hit a baseball. And that is the difference maker here, right? We can all nitpick, we weren't happy with Tyler McGill giving up his 3 home runs yesterday after cruising, just like David Peterson today. Literally, two of the same. In so many ways, it's actually nuts how much David Peterson and Tyler McGill have profiled similar with their continued up and down flows, ebbs and flows of 162 with the Mets this year. But again, it comes down to the offense. If you don't show up, it doesn't matter how many runs or lack thereof the pitchers give up. What's most important here is that the Mets get consistency once again with their offense. And I'm not overly shocked to see again on a weekend like this do what they did, but it still needs to change and things need to be better. We know and expect that to be exactly that. Now, I want to get into plenty more here with you all, and I also want to make sure that everything is double checked on the update front on my phone. So give me 1 second, everybody, and then we're going to have a nice second half discussion of the show, getting into a bit more on the trade rumors, on the news, and kind of just what to expect for the Mets and David Stearns, along with what to expect here on the channel over the next couple games. Hit a guy, gives up 2 bombs in only inning, while other guy K's and a pinch hit appearance. Let's see. Hit a guy, give up 2 bombs in only inning, while other guy K's in pinch hit appearance. Who are we talking about, Chais? I'm missing you here. I apologize. Let's see here. Steve Cohen and David need to trade for 2 more power hitters. They don't need to trade for 2 more power hitters. Stop the nonsense, everybody. Can we just? This is what I mean. This is what sucks about talking after losses, especially when everything was riding high. You guys just switch up so heavily. The Mets don't need to acquire 2 power bats. The Mets actually have a lot of power bats in their lineup. They actually have a good amount of power bats. Would I be opposed to another bat? Of course I'm not opposed to adding more players, especially players that are better than the current guys on the roster. But seriously, after acquiring Winker, how much more of an upgrade on the offensive end can you actually make outside of going a Luis Robert way to do a big splash? Brent Rooker isn't happening, so don't think it is. Tommy Pham, Michael Conforto, those things would have happened if Jesse Winker didn't happen, but Jesse Winker happened. So enlighten me as to what you guys think would be the case if another bat is going to happen. Because it's not. It's not going to. If the Mets add another bat that is bigger than Jesse Winker, I will not only be beyond surprised, but I will be ecstatic because of how surprised I actually was. Let's see his. Are you counting Cole Sulzer as selling? Elgood, for the sake of our back and forth this season, yes, I absolutely will. That's actually a hilarious comment. Let's see here. Juan Diaz with the $5 holla. Same thing with trading Michael Tonkin and Johan Ramirez this year. Well, we didn't trade Tonkin after the Twins to the Yankees. We just let him go, and the Yankees picked him up. But we did trade Johan Ramirez. So, yes, the Mets have been buyers and sellers this year. That's true. Sko, appreciate the new sub, my man. Happy to have you in here. Let's go, Mets, baby. Hope all is great on your front. Happy to have you join the community. Let's see. Mets get Tarek Skubal, Eric Fedde get it done. I would love to get... Tarek Skubal would literally have me crying tears of joy. You add a dominant southpaw, arguably the best pitcher in baseball this season right now with multiple years of control. Skubal's going to cost the entire farm, though, and then some. I don't see that happening. As much as I love it, I don't see it. Juan with the $5 haul says, Peterson and McGill have been historically inconsistent, and the Mets need to make improvements at starting pitching. Let's not waste this season. I agree. I 1,000% agree. Let's not waste this season. Exactly why I've been so excited about acquiring Jesse Winker, because let's all just take a moment to appreciate what's been going on right now with the Mets and their DH position. Because while the Mets haven't had the most dominant DH this year, now having Jesse Winker as an upgraded lefty bat option there when he's not playing outfield and when he gets some starts over JD Martinez and platoon every now and then, the Mets finally now have a tandem at the DH that they were looking for so heavily 2 years ago, but were idiots and didn't pull the trigger to make it happen then. 2022, Billy Upwork could not get the job done. Again, guys, just look at the difference 2 years can make. Billy Upwork, 2 years ago, our DH tandem, Darren Ruff, Daniel Vogelbach. Two guys that are no longer Major League Baseball and two guys that will never be MLB regulars in Major League Baseball ever again in their respective careers. Fast forward 2 years later, the Mets now have JD Martinez and Jesse Winker, two guys that not only have the flair for the dramatic, but two guys that have amazing clutch numbers and are fantastic in various situations, especially on the clutchness front. I cannot emphasize to you all how good Jesse Winker is in that regard. He feeds off of high energy. He feeds off of high leverage situations. He's a bad batter when the team isn't doing well. So I was less than surprised to see him strike out there in his first at bat with the Mets, not only with the short, turnover from going from DC, the Mets, one team to the other over the past night, but also Winker doesn't have good numbers when his team doesn't do well this season at all. So, and that, I'm okay with that. Like if it's a blowout, I'm not opposed to that at all. I'd rather that be the case. Just show up when you need to show up, right? Not when it's already too little too late, doing the best Pete Alonso impression. So yeah, a lot to like there. And again, it's crazy to see how much that has changed. And yes, can't forget Tyler Naquin. That's another great point. He actually falls more in that Jesse Winker category because he does play corner outfield as well. Speaking of Tyler Naquin, what is something that Naquin, Vogelbach, and Ruff also have in common? Another guy that is not in the MLB and is never going to be MLB regular ever again. Just a 2-year turnaround. That should not happen for supposed big splashes at the trade deadline. Yeah, that's where we were 2 years ago. Mets, thank you so much. Mendoza never micromanaged the batting order like that. Again, I appreciate the donation greatly, my friend. Again, I think we're being a little too nitpicky here personally when we look at the batting order. Again, that's just my opinion. The main reason why I say that is I can't sit here and suggest that, oh, the Mets batting order was drastically different today than what it was if they would have had great success. I think they couldn't handle Ronaldo Lopez, who's one of the best starters in all the NL this year. And I think the Mets simply just did not have enough to show today with a lot of the rumblings going on with the team lately, with Kodai Senga going down with injury, and the Mets just being incompetent in day games 9 out of 10 times this season. Put all those things together, that is what led them to their loss. Thank you for that donation, though. I appreciate that, Mets 2128. You've been a great supporter this year. You've called in plenty, and we appreciate your support no matter what. Let's see here. Billy Dottie with a $10 holla. Billy says, don't need another bat. What we need are quality starting pitching, because if the bats can't hit, we have to rely on our arms to bail us out. It has been the other way around for the majority of the season. No, you're 100% right, Billy. I cannot say that enough. Again, the Mets quality starting pitching is something that they've had very little of this year. Are you guys living under a rock? Is this your first first time realizing that most Mets pitchers this year have been 5-9 pitchers, outside of Luis Severino, outside of a couple sharp outings from Sean Manaea and Jose Quintana. It's almost like the Mets absolutely need to add reinforcements to this rotation, which is why they're heavily active in that trade market right now, and which is why no one should be shocked when the Mets inevitably announce a signing, not a signing, but a trade for at least one starter over the next 48 hours. Let's see here. Wardy, teach Mets fans not to talk trash too early, says Dante's a Braves fan. Dante's a humble Braves fan in the chat. He doesn't have a whole lot of reason to talk crap this year either with the way the Braves have been going. But yeah, look, I fall for it too. We all do. We get in the heat of the emotion. We see our team rolling. We're like, we're going to win the World Series. Who says no? We're always over dramatic. That's just how we are. I think the reason why Mets fans talk as much shit as they do, for both talking against opposing teams while also saying we're the best, while also saying we're the worst, is because of the complete lack of success the Mets have had as an organization entirely. We haven't had consistent success the way that the Braves had, the way that the Phillies have, the way that the Yankees have for many years, among others. And because of that reason, when the Mets do finally have success, when they do finally have a run going, we get giddy. And we get giddier than the average fan base in baseball because we're not used to the success. We don't know what it's like to have multiple consecutive winning seasons, especially in the two, as we get into the 2010s now, etc. Like, to actually be competent baseball teams every year pushing for playoffs is just something that we don't know very well. And I think in part the reason for that is not in part, I know the reason for that is just the incompetence with the decisions made over the years from previous front office regimes, to even to an extent what we've had in the first year or two under Steve, just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't with guys up there. But yes, this automatically leads to Mets fans having overreactions for both the best and the worst reasons, and that's what I have to say about that. But guys, I want to now get on to our final segment of the show to break down the latest news and rumors. Because as I mentioned, the Mets have been heavily involved in this market, as we know. They have been involved with starting pitching. They have been involved with relievers. They have been involved on the offensive end. So to kind of just check mark and go over everything that we know to this point, outside of a video that I do have in store that I will be recording for you all and posting either later today. If not, it will come out very early tomorrow, so be on the lookout for it, barring any changes from now until then, because news happens, breaking news happens. Same way I did not think Jesse Winker was going to become a Met last night at like 1 a.m. Thankfully, your boy was up watching UFC 304, as that was an underwhelming card outside of Tom Aspinall being a dog and Bilal Muhammad, sadly ruining my 5 or 6 leg parlay where everything else hit. And that's why you don't throw as many legs as you do, as a schmuck and myself does. But on the news front, on the rumor front, the Mets have acquired Ryan Stanek, that you guys saw today. What you might get with Ryan Stanek when he's not pitching well. Jesse Winker, that we are aware of. And on the starter front, the Mets have been connected to, yes, Eric Fedde. We did a video on that yesterday. Fedde, who I've been preaching to the choir for months on end, I think is a perfect option for this Mets rotation. But now I would even make a fair argument that with the unfortunate injury to Kodai Senga for the remainder of the season, I would argue that the Mets should go out and get 2 starters, or they need to make sure they get 1 good starter and really rectify that bullpen. If you're going to be more reliant on your bullpen being nails than your starters giving you length, it's imperative that you have relievers that are consistent and can get the job done there. So either way, we all know David Stearns is going to be looking to acquire there. Eric Fedde is a name that should have happened. We'll break it down, and I'll tell you guys everything that I've been saying the past 2 months. Again, why it's such a nice fit for the Mets. A guy that is not a strikeout machine, not a hard thrower of a right-hander, a soft tossing right-hander that induces a lot of ground ball outs and does it at a quality rate. And that's what we like there about Eric Fedde, and also provides length in the ball games. Just don't have him throw meatballs to Shohei Ohtani like he did not that long ago, that he absolutely tanked out of the ballpark. It felt like it was ridiculous, but it's Shohei. He gets the pass. Other starters that the Mets have been, I don't want to say reportedly linked to, like that they've actively shown interest, but just rumblings as things currently stand because of the Mets being in the market, and that's more on the rental aspect. Jack Flaherty, who's having a tremendous one and only year with the Detroit Tigers, finally healthy and looking like the dominant guy that the Cardinals were banking on years ago when he was healthy back then. And also Yusei Kikuchi, another rental option for sure, that's had an up-down year with the Toronto Blue Jays, has some solid swing and miss stuff. I think profile is best coming out of the bullpen too, potentially. Honestly, Yusei would be a guy that I would love over Jake Diekman as a lefty option in the bullpen, if I'm being completely frank. Like, if we're going to get crazy, if that at all could work, I would do it. But again, wishful thinking, not expecting that. More on the starter front, Jameson Taillon is a guy that you could probably expect us to talk about in the near future. The Cubs are still really debating what they want to do here when it comes to trading guys, but they just acquired Isaac Paredes to view the long-term vision, not this year. That's why they trade Christopher Morel, which was head-scratching to a degree, but Morel's been in trade rumors for a while. The Cubs clearly were just looking for a proper suitor to validate trading Morel with his value as it currently is, and now they get Paredes, who's more of a short with his defense. And Paredes, while I think he will have already hit his peak with the Rays, because that's a very Rays type trade to do, I'm interested to see how he falls there. Same reason why I'm interested to see what happens with their starting options and a Jameson Taillon at bare minimum, a guy that the Mets tried very hard to land 2 off seasons ago, and Billy Epler's final offseason as GM with the Mets, that time going from the Yanks then, not to the Mets, but ultimately to the Cubs. And on the reliever front, we talked yesterday how the Mets are connected and they have shown interest in that being in flamethrower from the LA Angels, Luis Garcia. No, not the young infielder from the Nationals, the veteran 37-year-old right-hander that touches 102 on the gun. And yes, Luis Garcia. Half the league wants him basically right now, so if you want to know everything to know about Garcia, check out that little live stream we did yesterday, which was essentially our version of our post-game show, because I just cut the post-game out after the fact. Oh, mic's off? How's the audio now? We good? We bad? We back? I got really loud all of a sudden. What the hell happened? I just feel bad. I don't know why that happened, guys. I'm sorry, everybody. You guys got cooked in your eardrums. The worst part is that I don't know. I don't know until after you guys tell me in the chat. And the chat is slightly delayed when I'm watching it through my software. So I sincerely apologize to each and every one of you that had to deal with your eardrums being blasted for the past minute or however long it was. And I apologize in advance to my replay viewers if I don't get a chance to cut this out in time. So now to reel back into this one, I don't know where I was at last with my point before I just completely destroyed all of your ears, but I'm going to do my best to really round this up and, you know, continue to break this down. And when we look at the reliever front, we talked about, as I just mentioned, the flamethrower from the LA Angels, 37 years of age, touching at 101, 102 on the gun, Luis Garcia. The Mets have also, they have been nipping around a certain southpaw option that I think you guys and gals can put 2 and 2 together. I am expected to be talking about that again in the near future. No, that does not guarantee that southpaw is going to be coming here. However, what it means is that the Mets are absolutely weighing those options on the reliever front, and they are not completely against the idea of acquiring even rental relievers if it makes sense for them right now. David Stearns is evaluating every single option that the Mets currently have on the starting front, on the reliever front, and I guess to a degree on the offensive end, but I think they did such a slam dunk, a perfect fit, a seamless fit there in Jesse Winker, in which, again, cannot emphasize this enough too. Broke that all down for you in our video that came out earlier today as well. Check it out, guys. And also, can't hear anymore, says JTB. What's going on? Hold on. The audio I know is going through. Hold on. Let me just double check to make sure that you guys can still hear me. Okay, you guys can still hear me. Okay. I was talking about starting pitching. Okay, gotcha. So if I was talking about starting pitching, Eric Fedde, Jack Flaherty, Jameson Taillon, Blake Snell, who else am I thinking here that is in the mix, the realm that can make sense to the Mets to a degree, obviously. There's one big one that I feel like I'm blanking on at the moment. Garrett Crochet, obviously. Tarek Skubal, again, shooting for the stars types that you shouldn't expect, but would obviously welcome should it happen. trying to think, is there anyone else on the that's too notable on the pitching end? I really can't think starter-wise right now, unless the Mets get creative and go for guys that, I'm not really thinking about at the moment. But those are the ones that stand out for sure. That's where there's been the most of the rumblings. And I firmly expect the Dodgers to make a big splash and land one of those big starters. I think the Dodgers are going to be desperate by Tuesday for sure. I think they're going to make a big splash for sure. David, it's not over, my man. It's not over. We're all good. Happy to have you in here, as always. But guys and gals, I'm not going to be too long-winded with today's post-game segment. So before I let you all go, I do want to, again, thank each and every one of you for taking the time to chime in today. It really does mean a lot. Blake Snell, yes, you heard that correctly. The reason why Snell isn't a complete no to the Mets of a thought process is the following reasons. It's one, Blake Snell has multiple years of control. So if you're acquiring him, you're not getting just a rental. Two, Blake Snell, who just had a 15 strikeout start against the Rockies a couple days ago, absolutely has been carving up batters and has been cruising much better as of late. Three, Blake Snell's expected numbers far better than his baseline ERA. He is still very much an elite pitcher, but you risk him walking everyone their mother, which has been a big bugaboo for the Mets and certainly a potential liability that could definitely hurt your bullpen should you get short outings from Blake Snell, which is the appeal against him. Also, the appeal against him is the dollars. He's on an expensive short-term contract, Snell, who would absolutely opt into another year of control with, say, the Mets, should he be acquired by them. For the Mets, the upside in this type of proposed deal is that you can get him at lesser value and what you're giving up because of said glaring contract. However, you're risking a walk rate that is obnoxious that could certainly hurt the Mets more than help them, and you are risking Blake Snell not being able to handle a big market, something that he's never dealt with in his career. Tampa Bay Rays, San Diego Padres, San Francisco Giants, all nonsensical small markets in comparison with the media for what you're going to get in the Big Apple with the Mets, with the Yankees, or anyone else involved. Boston Red Sox, you name it. It's not the same animal, and guys don't know all how to perform here, and Blake Snell's a guy where I think there's enough question marks to say you can't do it, right? You just can't do it. But however, though, if you get him at the right price, not opposed to it, I have my level of concern because he's uber talented, ridiculous swing and miss, Cy Young caliber pitcher, two-time Cy Young Award winner, but also two-time Cy Young Award winner in his walk years to a degree, and also had inflated numbers last year. Blake Snell was not as good as what his baseline ERA told you. Definitely had some luck on his side for sure with that great Padres infield defense behind him, led by Mr. Ha-Seong Kim. And I see some Padres fans in here, so shout out to them. Appreciate all you guys being here. It always does mean a lot, no matter who you're a fan of. Let's see here. Senga went down. Hello, Stern. We're not getting Bauer. Never going to happen. I don't know why we still talk about it, but I guess we're always going to talk about it until Bauer is just not playing baseball again. Maybe Bauer can try to handle the Mexican League for more than a couple starts before, worrying about, we should try to sign Bauer, a guy that's never going to play with the Mets or be in the MLB again anytime soon. But yes, by all means, let's go ahead and do that. You know what I want? You know what I want to rely on as a Mets fan in the wild card race? You know what I want? I want a guy that hasn't pitched in Major League Baseball in years. I want a guy who absolutely is going to be rusty as all hell and is going to cause controversy as soon as he enters the clubhouse. I want Trevor Bauer. Just hear everything I just said and really replay it in your head. If you still think that makes sense, I'm genuinely concerned on your lack of understanding on how important it is to have guys that can help the team now that would impact them greatly. So many reasons as to why Bauer will never happen, and it stems going all the way back to when he said no to the Mets after initially looking like he said yes and then choosing the Dodgers. Steve Cohen, that bridge was already burned then. To think it's been repaired since with everything that's happened with Bauer in his personal life since then, yeah, I got a bridge to sell you then. It's honestly a hilarious thought that we still have these discussions. He got accused of cheating in the Mexican League. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. I feel gonna go on a limb and say a lot of guys cheated in the Mexican League. So how bad was it? Seriously. My goodness. Braves have owned us recently. I mean, it's been up and down with the Braves this year too, though. A depleted Braves and we lose the past two games. That's what's most inexcusable about this entire ordeal. But everybody, that is about going to do it for the live show. I want to thank you all so much for watching live at a replay. I greatly appreciate that. And again, a glass half full viewpoint on everything is Eric here, who says the following. A week ago, the Braves had a 4.5 game lead over the Mets. Today, it's 1.5 games. The last 2 days sucked, but it is what it is. Yep, exactly. There's a lot to make note of when looking at the greater scale of things with the Mets and their performance. Hold on. You want Fedde coming from the KBO. You can't say Bauer is rusty coming from the Mexican League. Oh, I absolutely can, Joseph. You want to try to pull that shit on me. Has Trevor Bauer been pitching to a sub-3 ERA this season and over 115 innings at the MLB level? Has Trevor Bauer pitched in Major League Baseball for the past 4 years or so? Eric Fedde, the reason why I want him is not because of his pretty KBO numbers. It's because, one, David Stearns wanted him so bad this past offseason, and two, because of how good he actually is. Fedde's having a fantastic season and proving that his adjustments that he made in the KBO and also changing now his sweeper as a beautiful put-out pitch that he's utilizing this season has led him to his success. These are not the same. Again, understand the context, and then we can have the proper discussion. But again, thank you guys so much. Now we're going to wrap up the show because I'll be completely frank, I am absolutely exhausted. I know I'm going to have more content to make either later today or certainly tomorrow, along with my BR segments I got going on and a lot of other things. So again, thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate that. I love you all to death. And as always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby. Be on the lookout. Breaking news, live streams, rumors, reports. We're going to cover it all in the coming hours and days as they find themselves happening. Have a great one, folks.